Welcome back to Ellington for our next breakout session addressing a challenge that we all face in clinical research today. The traditional approach to site feasibility often falls short, burdening sites with repetitive questionnaires and yielding limited predictive values for sponsors. This panel brings together experts from research sites, sponsors, and technology innovators to explore how data, digital tools, and collaborative models can reshape feasibility assessments. You'll hear a discussion around real-world strategies for streamlining the process, improving site selection accuracy, and enabling earlier, more transparent engagement between stakeholders. Let me turn it over to Michele, who's moderating us today to get us started. Thank you all for joining, and welcome to the stage.
Hi, I'm Michele Cohen. I'm the Senior Director at an academic medical center at Mount Sinai in New York, so I am a site. And one of the things that we're going to get started with is have everybody introduce themselves and say one line about why feasibility is a frustration for you. I will get started. Today, I lead a team for strategic initiatives that drive innovation and operational excellence. However, sometimes I feel like I'm herding cats. And my most frustrating part of feasibility is creating more successful protocols from enrollment to implementation by engaging our sites early in the protocol development process, by soliciting feedback, not only from the investigators, but by our seasoned research coordinators and managers to identify all the logistical challenges before finalizing the protocol when it's way too late. Kylie.
Hi, everyone. Kylie Scheidler. I am the Senior Vice President of Global Site Solutions at Continuum Clinical. I very recently joined the company, and prior to that, spent 15 years working with the sites in operations, overseeing feasibility, and ensuring that the site network was getting studies we wanted to be part of that we could operationalize, and we're prepared for that. Feasibility in 2 words, it's broken. And that is my biggest frustration at its core. I've spent 15 years saying what I feel like the same thing over and over. It's a game that no one enjoys playing anymore, and we've got to find a way to fix it. So very excited to participate in the panel.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Jill Johnston. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for WCG. Been in this industry a really long time. Spent 20 plus years at Covance, several years at Viva, and the last 8 at WCG, leading a large number of business transformation initiatives. But my heart is in site feasibility, although it's frustrating. My biggest frustration is that we are introduced to each other like it's the first time, every time we get started on a trial, even though we've been working together for the past 20 years, sites and sponsors. And we're asking the same questions over and over again, like we don't know one another, and we've been working together for a long time. So that's my biggest frustration.
Hi, I'm Julie Mansson, VP of Project Strategy and Execution at NextStage Clinical Research. We are a site network based out of Houston. I've been in the industry a little over 27 years, all on site operations and site networks, and focused on feasibility and project management the last 5 or 6 years. I think one of my biggest frustrations, I like to call them fake news fire drills. It seems more frequent lately. My team will get an email from a client partner that gives us a treatment area and has a request to click on a link. And when you get in there, it's very detailed data that they want about your patient access. And I don't even know if I want the study. Like, I don't know if we can even do this study because they haven't given me any information until I submit all of that. And the next day it comes back and, oh, infusion, oh, this, that. So it's frustrating.
Hi, everyone. I am Dresden Whitehead. I am a Site Intelligence Manager for Avacare Research Network, aka a Feasibility Manager. I have 16 years of experience in the industry, 12 of which operationally for oncology, GI, and infectious disease spaces mostly. And the last 4 years, I've been in feasibility for this site network with over 40 sites across the country. And my biggest frustration is convincing people that we have really great PIs that are new to research and excited about research and an untapped database. And you say you want them, but at the end of the day, it seems like you don't. So that is my biggest frustration, and I'm so happy to be here and discuss with everybody on this panel.
So I feel as though feasibility is a little bit like dating, right? You're trying to impress everybody on that first date, and can you make it to the second date? So the sites are constantly saying what sponsors want to hear, promising high enrollment numbers. Kylie, is this the real truth? Are we saying that the highest number rather than the realistic assessment is driving feasibility? How widespread is this across the industry?
Yes, we're all liars. But we've created this environment that is not safe. It is not safe for sites to tell the truth. And I say that generally, we're not all out here lying, but it is a game of who can say the highest number. And it's exhausting to see it happen study over study, year over year. You sit here and you hear sponsors say, well, you can't trust the sites. Whatever they tell me, I'm going to cut it in half or cut it in a third. And sites are out here saying, well, if I tell you the truth, if I tell you I can only enroll 5, you're not going to pick me. But my quality's through the roof. I've been doing this a long time. It's like the focus is only on that number as opposed to the whole picture of the site, which is really unfair. Investigators who are super jazzed about doing research. They've never done it before. Untapped patient populations don't stand a chance anymore. You have to commit to these outlandish numbers. And then, surprise, you can't hit it. You end up spending money out of your own pocket to try to hit it. Timelines are never met. I think the metric was 80% of trials enrollment does not happen on time. No shit, because we're all saying really high numbers that we know we can't hit to win the work. Because if we don't have work, we're out of business in 3 months. It's this vicious cycle of trying to win work, trying to hit that number, instead of creating a safe space to say, I'm a good quality site and I can enroll 5. And that needs to be enough. And if that means you need to bring on, 5 more sites to get your overall enrollment goal on time, that's a commitment that needs to be made. Otherwise, we're going to stay in this vicious cycle of underperforming sites, escalation calls, and extended timelines.
Julie.
I like that you're comparing it to the dating. We've all talked about that in feasibility, and Kylie's laughing because I've got a workshop I do for PSV prep that's kind of amusing and inappropriate, but I like putting it on every year. So when I met my husband on Match, very plain profile, no game, doesn't look great on paper. We met for coffee and found out he had 4 kids, younger than all my kids. The list would have gone on. If I had known all that on paper, probably wouldn't have gone to coffee, and would have really missed out on a great guy. So a lot of times especially when you're working in site networks and you've got rural areas and research-naive investigators can't talk. The questions that are asked, like, how many trials have you done in this indication? None. But literally, the number of cases they do every week in this therapeutic area are astounding for where they are, because there's not a lot of specialists. And if I can just get you to coffee, you're going to fall in love with this site.
Dresden, anything to add?
No, I just echo what she said, and I do put a heavy emphasis on the PSV, if we can get you to PSV. And so how do I, for me, and in my role, I'm focused on how do I focus on integrity and honesty and data-backed feasibility, but make sure I get you to that PSV, because you'll see once you like us, or you'll see once you meet us that we are a great site. So that's where you have to get creative, and I think some more things that we plan to unpack here during this time, of like knowing the situation and the frustrations that we deal with. What can we do to make a difference, but at the same time make a difference in a way that's going to create positive change in the future?
One of my favorite lines is under promise and over deliver, because sponsors then want to come back to us. Jill, from a sponsor perspective, what do they want? What are they really asking for? Does your feasibility platform experience make site appealing just beyond the enrollment numbers? What does that mean from a sponsor perspective?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's an art and a science, right? There's a lot of data that's available. We have the opportunity now with, advent of AI enablement and some of our data to really be able to pull out some additional insights around the sites that we might not have seen before. Earlier this week, we were talking about most of the sponsor systems and CRO systems are based on a PI and PI information, and really with the advent of more networks and larger sites, it's about the site, what the site is able to bring. To your point, you might have really 3 great, long experienced PIs, but you might have 3 or 4 brand new PIs, and it's really around the site being able to support all of the staff members and trying to drive those projects forward. What are sponsors really looking for? They're looking for consistency, quality, making sure they see the diverse patients, that you have access to those patient populations. And so for me, it's a little bit of an art and science. I've been in the industry a long time, figuring out what the right questions to ask. What's your facility information? All of that information is already somewhere. We don't need to be asking for that again. But I agree, it's more of a relationship. It's like a dating app. It's not just the sponsor trying to find sites, it's whether or not the sites want to also find and participate in that trial. So it's a combination, it's a partnership between both, but I think at the end of the day, it's both an art and a science that the sponsors need to kind of dance this special dance to find the right sites to include in a study.
I just want to add on to play a little bit devil's advocate with the data. I think that data is a piece of feasibility, but I don't know how many times that we've been awarded a trial and we under-enrolled at no fault of our own. We had patients lined up, we were activated late, IP showed up late, enrollment closed early. So why did we only enroll 3 patients? I had 20 lined up that I had 17 I had to call and say, never mind, thank you so much. And the work that sites go through to get patients interested and lined up to enroll in a study, it's so defeating. So when I hear that data is being used without contacting a site, there's information we can find on a site without actually having to reach out. It makes me uncomfortable a little bit, because you may see that a site underperformed, under-enrolled on something, and without reaching out and having that conversation, it's not fair to then assume the site underperformed.
So Dresden, how do we bridge tool capabilities with sponsor expectations? What have you done?
Honestly, great segue, because that was the points that Kylie is bringing up are my frustration points, and to try to be solution oriented instead of just being like, oh, this is so frustrating, because at the end of the day, we have to stay engaged, we have to stay motivated, and we have a job to do, is to ask ourselves, and it's going to be different for everybody in different site networks, and what your boundaries or what you're working with is what can you control? So anytime I'm frustrated or I feel like there's something that I don't have control over, I reset and say, okay, control the controllables. And I think the biggest thing for me is retention and experience, because the more you get to know and work with a sponsor, it's not going to be our first time just meeting. Okay, I know these people, I know this is what they want. So I look and say, let's look at the tools that we have. is there anything that I can do to adjust or make the tools more efficient? What vendor can I bring on, or anything to say, I have enough experience to know that they're asking this question, but what they really mean or what they really want to know is X, Y, and Z. So it's going to be specific, and it's going to be different solutions based on where you're at and what you're working with. But I just take a step back and say, control the controllables. So if I know that retention, right now we're really hot topic on obesity, and retention and obesity, super hot topic. So let me look at the tools that I use, the CTMS, everything that I keep data in. Is it tracking appropriately what I need, knowing that these questions are going to come, because the frustration is every single FQ asks the same question and I say the same answer, and it's sometimes the same person asking me the same question they just asked me 3 weeks ago. And so is there something that I can put in place that this data is more conveniently, I'm able to extract it better, I keep it in the same space knowing that I'm going to be asked this question 5 times in the next month. So what do I do in my spot that I have the control over that can ease those burdens?
I think it's a really good point. What I think I'm hearing you say is that you're reading into the why of the question.
Absolutely.
I think, and I've been the recipient of getting a lot of those surveys, and a lot of times people are just answering the question, yes, no. And listen, all feasibility surveys are different, right? And we would love to get rid of feasibility surveys completely, but the reality is it is today. But I think it's really an important point, because if you get 1,000 surveys back, the ones that are answering the why are the ones that are going to actually stand out, that I understand that you've actually understood what's really being asked, and then being able to put a solution in place or provide a little bit of additional information so that I know that you're caring about what we're trying to do. Entering into a partnership, a relationship.
Yes. Noted. Thank you for
Yep.
the validation. I'll write that down and make sure I tell the team.
I was also just going to add that sometimes the best tool you have is your voice. Pick up the phone. We get disconnected, or somebody else say, I've got this feasibility and I can't put any explanation with this number. Okay, we're going to send emails. We're going to start calling. We're going to talk to the BD lead and find out who a contact is. One came across recently, they were asking for enrollment rejections. There was a field for my feasibility staff to enter a number. How many patients would you enroll in a month? 0. Nobody's going to enroll 1 patient a month on this study. It's rare disease. So that's where we went back and we sent in like a written, when I say proposal, it wasn't that fancy, but like a PDF that we were able to attach or send off with it and say, hey, we put 1, it's not really true. This is what we're going to do, and this is how we know this is going to go, because we've done these studies before, and this is the patient access.
Comes back again to relationships and communication and being able to put the information out there to maintain those things. Maybe this entire conversation will look differently next year after the site experience gets launched by Florence, and we will be out of the complaining of the feasibility business. I'm ready for that.
What will we do with our time?
Don't worry, we'll find something else to hone in on and improve our processes. We are never done in research. Jill, partnerships and models. There's a tug-of-war between site-by-site contracts and network-wide feasibility, with the network side pulling ahead thanks to shared infrastructure, flexible allocation, centralized oversight. Is contracting for 500 patients across the network system rather than individual sites the way that we see research in the future?
Gosh, I hope so. It's really difficult for all parties, I think, trying to do study by study. I mean, we're going to have to do that. I mean, it depends on the study, the phase of the study. But, years ago, I had an opportunity. I was looking for 500 sites in the United States, and I needed all the sites to participate in engaging with us as a network. I just asked for them, I'd like to use all of your sites. They're like, what? I said, no, whatever you have, I'll take. Trying to treat that more as a relationship, as a partnership. the discussion started to go into, hey, the network needs to provide 500 sites or 325 sites. I don't care which of the PIs you're using in your network. I just need to contract with Dresden to say, hey, can we try to engage in a partnership and you manage your sites, but we're talking at a network to sponsor perspective. And it produced a lot of great outcomes because we came together as a table, problem solved some of the challenges that we had, but it also put the responsibility back on the network to be able to say, listen, if you're going to be able to contract for 350 or 500 sites for this study, you guys then have the ability to problem solve on how best that's going to work for you to contribute those patients to the clinical trial. I found that to be refreshing in the discussion, and I wish we would see more of that going in the future. But again, it elevates those from a study by study to a partnership type level, that there's an engagement over multiple years across multiple studies.
I love this. Like, I think this is key, especially when we're talking about those research naive investigators. You know, if as a network, my team can say we can put 100 patients on across 5 sites, I may not even really be sure how the new doctor's going to be able to perform, or there's some dynamics that we haven't tested yet. However, I know that these partner sites, the sister sites, can over-deliver. Because at the end of the day, feasibility is about delivery. You know, once my feasibility team is done with things, then I turn to my project management team, because we've got to deliver on, you know, we're lying as honestly as we can on the feasibility questionnaire, and then you get to the PSV and you back off a little bit and make them love you. But at the end of the day, you just got to be able to carry that through and do what you commit to. And partnering up or having a network goal to do that is a great way to get these doctors experience.
It saves money across the board, because
Yes.
I'm not having to call each one of the 15 sites and try to say, what's going on, what's going on. I'm talking to you, one phone call, right?
And I have to reiterate that sites would love this.
Yes.
I don't, as Dresden knows, with a site network of 40 sites, a lot of time is spent just trying to figure out which of our doctors have been contacted, because we still have sponsors and CROs directly emailing PIs, like, any of them are checking their email, guys. It's the site manager behind them is who you need to talk to. So we've spent a ton of time chasing 40 sites. Like, have you been contacted about this one? Oh, we're at 5. Oh, have you? Oh, we're up to 8. Great. If you would have come to one person, I could have offered you up to 40 sites that could have done your trial. It saved everyone a ton of time. So when you were describing it in our prep call, I was like, oh my God, that would be a dream to have one conversation and tell you what our network can deliver for you.
Well, I was going to say, and at the sponsor and the CRO and their systems, when you talked about it's broken, those systems can't even fathom having a relationship with a sponsor to a CRO or sponsor to a site, because it's all based on a PI. And so you're breaking the system in order to do that network to sponsor or network to CRO conversation. So that's one of the things that I'll ask, the industry to think about as we're developing new products and solutions, is thinking about that as a concept that we can engage and engage, in a different way.
So one of the challenges I have with feasibility is dealing with staff on the pharmaceutical side that don't really understand the landscape or how they're actually going to be implementing these complex protocols. Some of the managers only have 2 years of experience. How do you think that impacts feasibility and the quality of the sites that they're finding, Jill?
Oh, yeah, and I brought this up during the prep call. It's true. I was talking to a affiliate from a large pharma company, and they had indicated that the global clinical trial leaders had 2-3 years of experience. I said, you even haven't watched a full study end to end. I don't know how you're going to be able to figure out how to pick the best sites, to identify the best suited sites. It comes back to experience, expertise. I think that we're losing a lot of that when you have folks that don't have that level of experience of running a clinical trial end to end. They haven't learned from their mistakes that they made. And so I really think, it's on the onus readiness of the sites and the networks to be able to kind of share that knowledge and really push back and kind of say, hey, this is how we're going to have to operationalize this protocol, and really bringing that to fruition, because, and I don't think you can be quiet about it. I think you're going to have to kind of take, have the courage to go back and kind of push back on some of the things that you're seeing, because it may not be fruitful at the end of the study.
I think that is spot on, and that is, I'm entering into my 5th year in this space and just now developing the courage and being like, now wait a minute, my 12 years of experience on site in operations, and I mean, 2 years ago, I thought you didn't know what you were really talking about, but now I think you don't know what you're talking about, and I have the courage to say something and kind of the expertise to back it up. And just a shout out to Kylie. Kylie actually used to be my boss, and I was so appreciative of her experience and being able to work with her to say, okay, like I was thinking the same thing she was, but she's got years of experience, and so that builds my confidence to do what I need to do as I'm working with these people that don't have as much experience, and I'm noticing that. So yes, experience and then the courage piece, which comes in 2 separate times, but if it comes at the same time, great.
I want to think about actionable items. What can sites kind of take home with them to make a change in the way that they currently do their process? And I'm going to speak as an academic medical center. Slowness and being a sloth is kind of, things get stuck in the bureaucratic systems. So one of the things that I've developed was making a template that showcases and highlights the advantages of why come to my site and what makes this site special in terms of implementation of a clinical trial. What tools have you guys used at your sites to help that?
I think Julie brought up a great point of following feasibility questionnaires. I don't know how many meltdowns I've had filling out feasibility questionnaires. They can be downright awful. I had one a couple years ago. I'll never forget that the way they asked the questions built the funnel backwards. Like they were narrowing down to the excluded patient population. And I had emailed them and said, listen, you're literally asking the questions backwards. What you should do is phrase it this way, so at the end, you have your most qualified patient population. And at the end of all of that, the answer was like, we'll just fill it out however. And I'm like, but the point, you're missing the point. Feasibility is arguably the most critical step. This is where you have to get it right, so you know how long it's going to take, how many sites do I need. That feasibility questionnaire, if we can't get rid of them, they have to be better. And if you're not asking the right questions, we have to take it on ourselves to follow up with the additional information that is valuable, that sells our sites. It is up to you to fight for the studies that you want and prove that you are the site that should be participating in the study.
That is a really great point, and one thing that I'm trying to work on now, it's mostly, this brings it back to like control the controllables, and if there's a system or something to make it faster, then I would love to start the vendor process that it takes at my current location. It's going to be different for everybody, but right now it's a lot of manual kind of storytelling of why does my feasibility team have access to understand why didn't we meet the enrollment? Or am I going to have to go to somebody to say, hey, what happened with this study? Is it documented somewhere? Can I pull out what actually happened? Was drug supply shortage the reason for X, Y, and Z? And then being proactive about having a good story or justification, knowing that the feasibility questionnaire is going to be yes, no, or only enter a number, and then there might be a comment box, but I've heard people don't even look at those. Like, I've been in this room listening to panels, and sponsors were very honest. They are going to filter by the highest number of experience or whatever. So how do you take the time to say, okay, let me document and understand what is really going on with this study? Even though I'm in feasibility, it's awarded, it might not be anything that I need to keep track of anymore, but it's going to be important to sell ourselves for future studies to have that readily available and not have to go track it down when you've got maybe 24 hours to follow up. But then, yeah, as Kylie is saying, it's our responsibility to say, okay, that feasibility form didn't necessarily represent me well. Let me connect with my business development team and paint this picture so that they can, the relationship that they have and they're building upon, they can tell a story, and then it looks really good on the network's part that says, okay, all of their pieces are seamless and working together and everybody communicates, and this particular thing was out of their control, and that's why they didn't show up when I filtered the list of who do I want to pick. So just kind of thinking about the full picture, and that even in the beginning, at this point I'm working on a lot of pre-award stuff, but even a pre-award, like everything is going to tell a story and going to be useful later on down the road for exactly what you're talking about.
I think something to think about doing in the next 30 days is look at your processes. So I'm definitely a process-driven person, but I operate in the gray. Like, you've got to be nimble. The thing with feasibility, when you just said it's crucial, like, you've got to get it right, but you got to get it right in like 48 hours. Like, it's like go time when you get that feasibility questionnaire or whatnot. I mean, I personally have set up a training program for every BD person we hire, and I immediately let them know I'm going to be their dream killer and the wind beneath their wings if we can just get along and you can follow these processes. Because what happens is they toss over, the client tosses over high-level information, and if they don't have a lot of experience, they're not upfront giving you extra information, such as, how many sites do you really need for this? Or how long do you think this is going to enroll? So many feasibility questionnaires lately have been asking, how many patients can you enroll in 3 months? How many patients can you enroll in 6 months? And then the timelines they're giving me are a year, and I'm just like, I think they just need feedback on how long I think this is going to take to enroll. So having a process in place where you can, yes, get on that feasibility questionnaire, but in tandem, have the team that first sees it immediately going for the missing pieces. And it can literally just be high level. This is an add-on or rescue, because that could really matter whether we should do this or not.
And it's okay to say no.
All day long.
I would add to it's okay to say no, and sites, be an advocate for your time and resources. If you're being contacted for feasibility, ask about what stage they're at. If they're at pre-award, we're seeing so much in the pre-award space, and I don't think it's fair. A lot of some sites have dedicated teams that do feasibility, and that's all they do. But others, you've got a coordinator wearing 20 different hats. Feasibility is just one of them. So to come out to sites at the pre-award stage and ask for all this data, it's not fair. And there's no guarantee that after they've spent an hour giving you what you've asked for, that you're even going to pick them if you get picked. So sites advocate for your time. Here's what I can tell you at this stage, and that's it. Obviously, we need to smile when we do it so that they pick us, but advocate for your resources and your time depending on what stage you're at in feasibility.
Jill, is there anything from a sponsor perspective that would help the sites?
Yeah, as you guys were talking, one of the things that I would ask them, we'd always come up with an ideal site profile. So, as we're reviewing the protocol and we're thinking about the types of sites that would be most successful for running this trial and what the requirements were, we would develop that kind of golden site profile and then try to develop a questionnaire that would figure out whether or not we could achieve that. My question probably would be back to the sponsor is, do you have an ideal site profile? And so that can I take a look at it? Because if I'm not matching up to that, then you're kind of trying to give answers to a question that you're not even well suited for, but somehow you got that survey and you're going to never come up above that line to be chosen. And why waste your time? It's not, I don't think that's very fair.
The wasting time, the fake news, fire drills. I've been with my current company now about 1.5 years, and if you look at how many feasibility questionnaires my team has completed compared to years before, a lot lower. But guess what? A lot more awarded studies, a lot more deliveries. We really You don't need to do everything, and the more we can communicate up front to make sure that we are that right site or the right fit. It's not just wanting to have high metrics or numbers of what you've done, just really want to work with intention. I know I was in a session earlier and agility came up, and that just really, I think it was in this room, that really just hit me and something I want to take back and focus on more. Working with intention and knowing it is okay to say no. I mean, I say no a lot more than I say yes, but when I say yes, we're going to deliver.
So what role does technology play in streamlining our site feasibility, and why can't we have a more synchronous system in place? I know it could be coming. Are there any pitfalls that you'd like to highlight here? Julie, you're smiling.
Because I'm in pain. It's overwhelming at times, like even just, there are things I've heard here that were inspiring, and I've thought about systems, and then I'm like, okay, could we switch systems again? Or, I don't know, I could bring up things like SIP. I don't know why it's so hard.
Right.
I don't know why it's so hard to streamline. And I think it's because we get too caught up in the next best thing that's out, or not keeping it simple. Just keep it simple. Even with the feasibility questionnaires, always have a field where people can elaborate, or I know it doesn't, it doesn't fit into the square, doesn't fit into the round hole. I think we do overcomplicate things, and just keeping it simple and not trying to be so different. I mean, we were talking earlier about titles or things like that. Sometimes we and companies that we work with try to differentiate so much that it really just slows us down.
I was also going to say, the system is set up very similar to, we talk about electronic health records, structured and unstructured data. So the system for feasibility is set up to be collecting structured data.
Yes.
And we're entering into an environment where it doesn't matter anymore. It would be really interesting for you to kind of put together your proposal for this particular study. And, from an AI enablement perspective, kind of draw out those key points. Because to me, going back to Match.com, that's essentially what we're trying to do, is what's the best fit for a site for this particular study. And if you're above, 80% match, it should be like a sure thing that site should be selected. And if you're not, if you are not matched that high, to your point, why can't I go back and tell you why you didn't match it?
Yes.
There was something, could be a whole bunch of things. I have too many sites in Chicago, right? This other site was a match of a 92%, you were at 85. It's not that was negative, but it's just that this other site might be better suited. And so we might be getting into this place where it's not going to be feasibility surveys in a structured way, but trying to get it so that there's a better match to that ideal site profile to that study. I'm throwing that out there.
No, that's awesome. And I do think that the feedback piece, we always ask, why did we not get selected? And I mean, we have a default, for Devonna, just put too many sites if we can't figure out why. But there's a reason. There is a reason. And a lot of times I'm puzzled. I'm not sure why you didn't pick this site, because they're perfect for this study. So that's good.
There are two things that come to mind as you ask that question, and I hear you guys discuss a little bit about it. I come to these conferences and I get very excited about the new technology and this is going to make things so much faster, easier. It's going to be great. And then I have two roadblocks. Is number one, the vendor process for where I'm at, and then number two, I think I'm very passionate about quality and compliance at the sites. So are our coordinators entering the data everywhere that they need to be entering it, and so I just don't want us to lose track. So the problem is, we'll get this really cool new system, we'll work, and then there's holes. There's holes, and so that system's not doing what it's designed to do, because now as a human being, I got to come behind and say, okay, well, race didn't get filled in here because somebody wanted to put, I declined to answer, and then our coordinator decided to enter it in a certain way. And so not losing the quality of data entry and helping, a lot of these coordinators at the sites are brand new, and they don't understand the importance of this piece of information and what you're putting in and why you're putting it in. And so training at the site level very well, these new coordinators coming in and not being lazy, not being jaded with the way that we're running operations on the site, so that when we get to this level of a network and saying, hey, I've got a really great solution that's going to help us with feasibility, and it's going to talk to this system, and it's going to pull this information in 2 seconds instead of me spending 2 hours on it, we just have to make sure there's all of the details are cleaned up and worked out. So I love the technology that's coming up. I get very excited about it, and then I wonder, can our sites do this? Is the information there to be pulled? And if it's not, like training people, getting things in order to be well prepared for when it comes, and it doesn't slow down the process even more. If you don't have to get ready if you stay ready, in short, is what I'm saying.
I'm a little competitive. I would love a report card at the end of the study to say, how well did I do as a site? Not just about enrollment. It's all about the data, the quality of the data, the compliance with the regulatory, and did you have a good experience with my staff? Because I want that repeat business.
Great.
I want to give the audience a chance to ask any sort of questions. Oh, Chad.
Oh, Chad. I'm excited now.
Okay, here's a softball. Oftentimes, sites and sponsors are trying to create partnerships and relationships that matter. And CROs are not incentivized to maintain that relationship. So when it comes to site feasibility, what roles do the sponsors have to ensure their sites are representing them well with the sites that the sponsors have to ensure their CROs are representing them responsibly to build and maintain relationships with the various sites they're trying to work with?
Anyone want to take this?
I can start. I've been in that situation. I was at a CRO for a long time, and sponsors that I worked with asked us that question. I think it really depends on how much and how engaged the sponsor contact is. They need to be making those choices around site feasibility. They can't leave it just to the CROs, and I think a lot of sponsors do, but it also goes back to how much experience they have. And so there needs to be some sort of partnership between the CRO and the sponsor, but ultimately the sponsor, their name's on the protocol. They're the ones who are going to get the data and information, and they need to create those relationships with the sites directly as well. I just don't know if all sponsor and biotech companies are engaged in that way. I think the ones that are pretty successful. I think that they get their name out there. I think the relationships are good. A lot of other times the biotechs and some of the pharmaceutical companies kind of outsource that relationship management to the CROs. I just don't think it's as successful. I don't know how you guys feel, if you're just contacted by the CRO or you're also, in addition to the CRO, engaging with the sponsors and biotech companies directly.
I mean, ideally, yes, we would like to have relationships with all the above. And it really does just depend on how that company decides to be set up. And then there's taboo. I mean, I know there's times where we'll get a study awarded and then it comes to my project management team and we're setting up, the kickoff meetings and things like that and trying to make sure, okay, well, the sponsor sent this email and they never copied the CRO, so maybe we should do a separate meeting. Like, it just drives me crazy. Like, I just wish up front it was kind of like, this is how we want this to go from the client end, like telling the sites what they want. Because really, we'll do what they want. We'll complain about it, but we'll do it.
We're often brought in very early with sponsors, and maybe because we're an academic medical center, and they tend to use our investigators to design the protocol. And that is definitely one of my frustrations, that we should be at this conversation much earlier than we are than at site feasibility. So what can we take home? Let's wrap up here. What can we do to improve this process and make it more holistic? Kylie.
Yeah, I would just say for the sites, fight for yourselves, right? If you're filling out a feasibility questionnaire that you feel like they're not going to pick me, take the time to draft something separate to add to it. Sponsors, listen to sites. Quit doing that thing where we cut it in half and sites don't know what they're talking about. We know better. Listen, and I know it's not feasible to ask sites to just submit you can't just do a free text feasibility questionnaire, right? There has to be some structure to it, but think outside the box, prioritize quality, let sites really sell themselves and not just pick the ones that are throwing out the highest numbers, because I promise they're lying.
I would say three things. I think I mentioned before, courage, pushing back, asking questions, ask for that golden site profile, the ideal site profile. The second thing I would say is ask for feedback. Be persistent and asking for that feedback as to why you were chosen, as well as why you weren't chosen. I think both answers are going to be incredibly helpful. And so for me, I think it's probably those two things. My wish, I don't know if it could be happening in the next 30 days, but my wish for a longer term is really trying to create that partnership, and over a long period of time, probably as a site, I would probably engage with the pharmas and biotechs that are probably most ideal for looking at the therapeutic areas and clinical indications that you want to work in, and creating those relationships, because relationships matter in this industry more than anything.
I think that on the site side, we were just talking about pre-award, or the surveys, pre-award surveys that come through and things like that. That's a great time to start thinking about partnering. Spend 10% of your time on it. 10% chances can go to award, or whatever your metrics are for your company, but proactively say, hey, if you're awarded this, we would love to help with the protocol review early, or, let me tell you how this is not going to work, kind of thing early. And you build those relationships. And always, I know we always just try to really go forward with the mindset of, we're happy to give you feedback, even if we can't do this study. And then on the sponsor CRO side, for the love of God, Buddha, please stop sending a link without the PDF. That's all.
I think I come from outside of clinical research. I'm in a motivational speaking space, so all of these practical points I love, and then I would also just reiterate to focus on maintaining hope and connecting with your why and other people's why, because at the end of the day, there are human beings that are frustrated and why am I even doing this? And none of this matters if you can, like I said before, identify what it is that you are able to control and control the controllables, and then keep a motivational, positive attitude about your work so that you are doing what you can in the moment while also in tandem trying to make a difference for the future. But then if you lose hope and we're just all jaded and frustrated, there's not much change for the future. So just keep the hope alive, keep the group motivated as best as you can with these burnout strategies. We've had a breakout session on that, and just keeping people engaged alongside all of that was just mentioned.
Thank you so much. At the end of the day, there are teams around this, and there are patients that are hoping for those treatments and those cures. So thank you to the panelists, and I'm standing between you guys and lunch.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone.